can stop it. I'll let you know. Alright, so I'm starting with 2 pounds. Center as always. I'm going to go over basics because it's only our second project. So I try to get it as centered as possible just to begin with. And then instead of sealing it to the wheel, it's kind of a first time throwing sort of thing. So I'm going to use the base of my thumb and push straight down. Notice how it's moving my arms? It's because my arms aren't locked in. But if I lock my elbow and my hip, it won't move as much. And if this 2 pounds moves your body, I'm worried about your eating habits. If you're a little too light, less than 2 pounds. Okay, so that's pretty much centered, but I want to cone up and cone down, just kind of wheel wedge it. So elbow in, into my hip, not out here, it's in my hip. And I know it feels a little awkward. It's literally like 40 seconds worth of throwing. So I'm coning up, then I'm going to cone back down. Just going to get it to hold still. Okay, then I'm going to open straight down. I still see a lot of people like this or like this. Elbows to your body so you can stay nice and tight. It's right in the middle. And see how I use my hand to push that hand down? Okay. I'm going to stop it and measure it. If you're still struggling on throwing, this is probably the most important part, because if you finally get one and you think you're finished, then you go to cut it off and cut the bottom off, it's kind of devastating. So the bottom is a little bit more than a 1/4 inch. I like to do a nice deep foot on bowls, make them like Japanese rice bowls. So that's going to be perfect because that's how deep my foot will be, a little less than that. But anything less than that, say 1/8 of an inch, you've got to start worrying. Okay? Maybe add some more clay if you needed to. You can push some of the clay from out here and slowly push it back in the middle. I'll kind of give you an example real quick to show you how to do that. So I can take the clay and just slowly push it back towards the middle. It's only going to give you about a 1/16 or an 1/8 of an inch at the most. So now I've opened down, I want to open out. A little bit of water. You'll notice how little water I use. You don't need to just all over it, okay? So then I'm going to open out towards myself, keeping my elbows in, so that way it's nice and strong and sturdy. I'm going to open this a little wider than I want the bottom of my bowl. So my bowl, I want it to be this wide. So I opened a little bit more, and you'll see it's wobbling. It's wobbling because I let go too fast. I'm going to hold the side right here. I'm going to recenter. So say it was a little wobbly like this. This is where a lot of my students will ask me, how come it's thicker on one side than the other, or how come it's taller on this side than the other side? It's because it was off-centered at this point. If you get it recentered, you won't have to worry about that. So I'm just pushing in the side with this part of my hand, push in, and then I make an extension of my thumb, because I can't wrap my thumb, but if you can just wrap your thumb around it, that's fine. So now I'm ready to pull it up. I'm going to pull it up just like I do any other pot. And I'll explain the beginner's hump. The beginner's hump is lumps in the bottom of the bowl. It should be nice and flat. If it's not flat when you open it, like you go to open out, and you kind of raise your thumb, or there's all these little divots in there, just take your sponge and just flatten it out before you start pulling up. So otherwise it's hard to reach later. Okay, then I'm going to show you a little cheater's strategy for those of you who are already getting throwing. When I first pull up, I squeeze between this hand. The sponge is still right next to my thumb, but I squeeze and it gets me what's called a power pull. It gives me more out of my first pull. Okay? Some people call it the crab claw. I know Sam Lopez over at RCC, he's a professor there. I don't know if you know Miss Lopez in the textbook office. That's her son. He's an amazing putter. Okay, so now I'm gonna do one more pull. This pull, if you've made the cup or you tried making the cup and it kept going out, that meant your inside hand was pushing too hard. Now that's what we want. So if you made bowls the whole time, so I'm still doing a pull, squeezing that clay in, but I'm gonna pull out with my inside hand. Okay, all the way up, but you'll still see it's kind of more of a cylinder than it is a bowl. Decent bowl, but
How many of those pulls can you do?
as long as it takes. I'd rather you do it in 20 pulls than in one pull. Just the main thing though, you brought up a good point, is you don't want to pull it out too far to where it doesn't have anything to rest on. It has to have a little bit of an angle. If it pulls out too far, you'll see it collapses, and sometimes it'll crack a little bit, especially if you add too much water. So each time I add water, you'll notice I put that much. Just a little bit to get on the inside. So I'm going to slow it down just a little bit. This pull, I'm really going to pull it out, but the main thing is my inside hand is going to make that bottom nice and curved, because I don't want it to be sharp. That's what the beginner's hump is. So one, I'm going to try to do it with my hand. Two, if I don't do it with my hand, then I can do it with a smooth rib. But I don't want a sharp shelf, I want it to be nice and rounded. So I'll show you that. So I'm going to slowly pull out the bottom. And you'll notice you have to do it slowly. If you pull it out too fast and you start going up, it's going to wobble on you a lot. So you want to pull out and let it go a few circles, full circles. And then slowly move up. And I don't pull the top part out. You can if you like to flare the lip. I'm not a huge fan of the flared lip. It looks pretty, but it doesn't function that well, in my opinion. So now I'm going to get some of the water out, and I'm going to take a look at my beginner's hump. If you can see in there, there's like a little hump on the floor, and it's really sharp in the bottom. So I'm going to take this smooth rib, and this should be the shape of the bottom of your bowl, right here. This will be the side wall, so I'm just going to stick this in there. And just kind of shave it off until it goes flush with the rest of the pot. So you'll see it's nice and curved now. It's got a good curvature inside. Clean it with a sponge. Mainly the beginner's hump is just no lumps and humps inside. It should just be flat and then curve up really nicely. Okay? I'm going to do a little bit of pizzazz to it. Actually, before I do the pizzazz, I want to trim the bottom. If you have ever had to trim one that you didn't trim on the wheel, you've already learned that you should do it every single time because it takes forever to trim. But and it's hard to get off the wheel. But I'm just going to follow the shape of that bowl. I'm not going to go straight down. I want to go underneath it. So I'm using the blade side again. Carve right in there. Keep the blade against the bowl. If you do it and you notice it pushes the inside up, then just get rid of the chunks and the trimmings and then reshape the inside again. And some of my students have had a hard time cleaning that chunk off with their modeling tool. So just take your needle tool underneath it, go all the way through, and then just chop that little piece off. So you can clean it with a sponge, but I'm not going to right now. So now what I'm going to do is I like this lip. It's nice and thick. I like thicker lips on my mugs, but not so much on my bowls. But I don't want to thin out the whole wall, because then it's going to ruin the integrity. Not ruin it, but decrease the integrity or the strength of it. So if I were to thin the whole thing all the way up, it would most likely chip when I try to trim it. So I'm going to hold the back side with my thumb here, use the smooth rib. The reason I use the thumb on the back is if I just pushed here, the lip would just move out. It wouldn't actually thin it out. I'm going to take the sponge, clean that up a little. You guys want a round bowl or a square bowl? Square. Square it is. Alright, so we're going to square it, and it's really simple. It's just thumb straight across. I use these lines right here on the wheel to make sure I line them up. Pull those, stretch them a little. Turn it 90 degrees. Stretch it a little. Okay, then I'm going to spin it and just take my finger, clean finger, right here and just kind of make it more of a bowl shape again. There's a square bowl. The last part